Can you
I'm
hear me?
not, I would say I'm right in the middle. Yeah, I can hear you. I'm right in the middle ground of being a tech person. Like,
So, so what are you doing in the UK?
so my friends were moving from LA to Belfast, and the original plan was they have 3 cats and a dog. So I was going to take one of the cats on the plane with me, but they because of COVID, the airlines weren't allowing any animals in the cabin, which I think is so stupid. So she had to put them in cargo, and I, I called her. I said, "Hey, it's totally fine, if you don't want to bring me now because it's expensive, blah blah blah." And she said, "No, you're coming." So I'm helping them move.
So are you in Belfast right now?
Actually, we're on the coast, so we're about 40 minutes from Belfast. We're staying in this 200-year-old cottage,
Wow.
um, just off on the water. So it's beautiful. It's super isolated. We're very safe here. It's gorgeous. It's its own little island with only like a little bridge to get onto it. So there's all these like walking paths, and it's actually a bird sanctuary. So it's really just beautiful. And we've been walking almost every day, and it's gorgeous here.
That's amazing. Your next record should have at least 1, 2 jigs or reels.
Oh, I
Like,
totally agree.
yeah. I gotta tell you, this, I get music sent to me all the time. Mostly, I'm a musician and I love it. But this record of yours is such a stunner on so many different levels. And I told Joe Cassidy, my favorite Irishman, that wow, listening to Ashley's record is like listening to one of those great 1960s Bobby Gentry type records recorded in the Columbia studios. And it's just, I mean, not just Bobby Gentry, but all those great Owen Bradley records. And I knew you could play it. I've been aware of you for quite a long time. But there's something about that record that if I took a road trip today, I'd be listening to it over and over and over again.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah, we were totally going for that like timeless but like kind of 60s vibe. Like, I don't know. I'm really inspired by obviously the music of my dad from the 60s and the Wrecking Crew, but also I love like 60s French pop and Brazilian 60s pop, like Astrid Gilberto and Francoise Hardy. Like, I'm obsessed with them. So like I wanted it to have this kind of, I don't know, feel.
Have you ever heard Cesaria Evora?
No.
I'll send you a link. It's just she was I think from the French Comoros Islands, right off of the coast of Africa, and she spoke Brazilian and actually Portuguese, excuse me, and it's really fantastic. And even when I think the second song on the record, I'm trying to think, is it something special? Um,
Oh, what is the second song?
I'll
I
figure
don't
it
even
out,
know.
but
Wait, I think it's Forever's Not That Long.
exactly. All right, but even before I heard you doing Good Vibrations, there were like weird, strange elements of pet sounds that I heard in some of these recordings.
Yeah.
I swear to God. And then on, I mean, if remembering didn't completely hit me hard, it was the little quote of Blackbird that you just hear for a quick second. So it was just, it's a good album. Now, when you said that you're going for that sound, and it's very rarely do you hear artists, well, actually, you probably hear it more than not, but I don't. But it's like you have this. Did you have the idea of the soundscape prior to going into the studio and recording it? Do you write with this stuff in mind?
Generally I do. Even if I don't write the song with that in mind, like when we go in to record an album, I had a vision for how I wanted it to feel on the whole, as a whole. I wanted to create, because I'm still a big believer in the full album. A lot of people have been telling me, um, oh, people are just, the thing to do now is just to release a song at a time, or like 3 songs or an EP. And
Yeah.
I'm a staunch believer in the album, in creating a piece of art that's supposed to make you feel a certain way, and that's supposed to bring up certain emotions and create a dreamscape almost, you know? And so that's what I want to do. And I don't give a fuck what what people are doing now, you know. I'm gonna make music, and this that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make something that you can live your life to. Like my favorite albums are the ones that I put on while I'm cooking, you know. Sorry, my friend's phone just rang. You know, when I'm living, when I'm cooking or hanging out with friends, you put an album on that you can have on in the background. And not saying it's background music, but something that makes you feel good, that makes you feel at home. And yeah, so I like to make music to live to.
Did you feel that any of that boldness, the not giving a fuck about anything relating to, you know, what's expected of you, is that informed at all by the world that you were raised in? Was your father sort of unyielding in that regard?
It took me a while to get there. You know, I was with a big record label when I first moved to Nashville, and it took me going through that process of people telling you who you are and what music you should make, and then finally breaking free from that and saying, I don't, you know, because I remember one of the darkest times for me as a songwriter and as an artist was when I felt so much pressure to write a radio hit, right? Okay, what does radio, oh, this song would never be on the radio. Let's scrap that. I need to write something that the radio would play. And that's totally the wrong way to go about it. And I got so depressed that I just didn't even really want to do music anymore. And then when I kind of broke away from that, I just had this feeling of, okay, I don't care if they play this on the radio ever. This is what I want to make. And as long as I'm happy with it, that's all that matters. And so that's kind of how I'm doing it nowadays, you know.
That's a great way of looking at it. I mean, do you think that this past year, which is so bizarre and unpredictable, but a mandatory quarantine and a lockdown, but you know, and what's the best thing that's come out of this for you artistically?
The best thing that's come out of this year for me, especially artistically and just in life in general, which I think are very, very connected, is this year has stripped me of what I do. You know, I haven't been able to tour and play in front of audiences and do the thing you do when you release an album. And so it's forced me and a lot of other people to ask the question, well, why is life? What's important to me if I can't do what I love to do as far as work and music and things like that? And so, you know, I had to, you know, I kind of tried to take baby steps and find little bits of joy in every day and nurture my mind. And so I came up with a routine during quarantine where I'd sit out on my balcony, and every day at 5 I'd go sit on my balcony and read a book and have a glass of rosé or an Aperol spritz, you know, and kind of try to
You're such a sophisticate.
to live. I
Yeah.
am. I know. I'm very.
No, I
so
love it.
European.
It's great.
But like try to take in, you know, that it's okay to not be going and working all the time, that there's merit to enjoying a moment. You know what I mean?
I should do the same thing. I realized the other day I went out to my car and it was quiet, and I'm in Chicago right outside, and it was so clear and so beautiful, and I realized how connected to my phone and all this like electronics, and I need to hear something at all times, and I just kind of let everything be. It was quiet, and I thought, like, why don't I do this more often? I'm not going to be able to do this at one point when I'm not here, you know.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well,
Go ahead.
oh, I was going to say also, I think I saw recently, ironically enough, on Instagram that, you know, someone was saying like something came up from a dream that she had from years ago, and it's still in her brain, even though she had the dream when she was 7 and she's in her, you know, she's 30 now. Okay. And she was remarking on how amazing it is that every single thing that happens to you in your life and that you watch or listen to, it is stored in some capacity in your brain, even if it's not always at the forefront. And it makes you think, wow, it is really important what I expose myself to. Because I actually I jokingly struggle with a little addiction to Netflix, where it's like when I kind of just want to ignore feelings and whatnot, I'll walk around and do household chores with my phone, watching a TV show. Like I'll be watching TV all day, holding my phone, and it kind of keeps you from connecting with your present.
Sure.
And also, if you watch, too many TV shows, blah, 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 like that stuff is going into your brain and staying there. And it's not saying there's no merit in TV shows, because they're
Right.
wonderful. There's very, very great movies and television, but like it's okay to not be constantly consuming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also to be selective about what you're consuming is very important, I think. So that's something new that I've been focusing on during the last couple months.
What was the last thing you watched that you really enjoyed?
Ooh. So I've been showing, I've seen these before, of course, because I'm a huge fan, but I've been showing my friend who's never seen the Miyazaki films. I've been showing her some of the Studio Ghibli things, like Howl's Moving Castle and Princess Mononoke, which are like total stunning pieces of art. And I love those. And I just read a book on 19th century surgery.
Which is
Can you hear me?
normal, people do that.
It's fascinating, that just in the 1800s, like, they didn't even have anesthesia. Like, so that just blows my mind. I love stuff like that. I love like crazy medical history and the history and evolution of science.
If I come down with consumption, I only want you treating me, or tuberculosis, just 19th century type stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna die, but
right. But it's interesting that you say that stuff, because it's not. I'm one of these people who've always been fiercely sensitive to any time people have bagged on country music or anything from the South, because I just, even coming from, the northern suburbs of Chicago, I've just always been into just the eloquence of, everyone from Hank Williams to, I love Roger Miller. There's a song on your record that actually, it has that same kind of whimsical quality. And I feel it's such a loss. I've got to look up the names. I think it's the fourth song on there, and it just starts out with you, and then the music kicks in.
It's the Something Lovely, the title track.
Exactly.
I actually I had Roger in mind when I wrote that song.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I went to the day that Joe Cassidy told me that I'd be interviewing you. I was watching your dad and Roger playing. Now, after your film the film came out of the last tour, which I told you that my friend Don had worked on outfitting you guys back in LA, but it made me go down the Glen Campbell rabbit hole, where I was watching stuff from the 50s and some of those great country music cavalcade shows of like the early 60s. And then when he's playing with Roger, I think they're playing Dang Me, and then In the Summertime, and your dad's playing, it became so sophisticated. Was he was he listening to jazz?
Yeah, his idol growing up was Django Reinhardt.
Right.
So there you go. And you can hear it in his playing. When he does his solos, you can hear very Django-y solos and tricks and licks and stuff like that,
Well, I kind of heard it in you. Are you the one playing the solo on Something Lovely?
I play the first half, and then the second half is Carl Jackson.
Okay, so you're playing on a nylon string, right? It's a really, really pretty thing. So when and where? Okay, so I guess I went on a tangent right now because of the Roger Miller stuff. Now, why did you have him in mind? Because I read that you have like a comedy background and that you're into performing, so you have that kind of bodiness.
Yeah, Roger's one of my favorite songwriters, and he was one of my dad's idols as well, and I guess I inherited that from him. But I just love, because so many people take songwriting so seriously. They think, it is a serious thing, but sometimes you just have to kind of write what comes to you, and sometimes it's okay to be kind of silly. And some of Roger's lyrics were so freaking silly you know, like you can't roller skate in a buffalo herd.
Yeah,
um, but even some of his more serious songs had just kind of like whimsical, silly properties to them. And
sure.
so that's where that first little conversation in Something Lovely, you know, nice to meet you, my name's such and such, you look like a so and so I used to know, like I wrote that and I thought that'd probably make my dad laugh, you know, or
I think
um
it's great though, but you know, I really admire the fact that you are kind of mining from a pretty large uh, musical, you know, well. And but it goes back on, you know, the decades. When did you start throwing yourself into actually understanding the history? I mean, obviously you have the talent to be playing banjo and matching wits with your dad when you were playing guitar, but like, was there a moment where you um, really started to kind of investigate?
yeah, actually there was. It was right after Merle Haggard passed away.
Mhm.
And I'm admittedly a very late bloomer. I'm kind of always late to the party. But once I get there, I'm like, yes, I'm here. Um, so okay, so I've always heard of Merle Haggard. You know, I knew who he was and I knew his
Mhm.
big songs, but and we went and saw him at the Ryman Auditorium, you know, a couple of years before he passed, and he got to, you know, we went backstage and I got to meet him, and we went on his bus, and he and my dad, you know, said hi. But then after he died, I said, I'm gonna put on some Merle Haggard. And I had no idea what a huge Merle Haggard fan I would become. And what I always go back when I investigate an artist, I don't listen to the best of or anything. I just go back to like their first or second album. So like for Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard and people like then Dolly Parton, that was in the 60s. And it's amazing the legends that they have become, are a very different picture from what they started out as, but their core is still the same, and they're actually very sophisticated and intelligent and clever in their lyrics and genius, you know.
Mhm.
So like I went back and listened to Merle Haggard's Ramblin' Fever album, and the song Love Somebody to Death, like most people
Yes.
don't know that song, but it's hilarious and
Mhm.
and amazing, you know. And same with Willie Nelson. I did a Willie Nelson themed live stream last night on stageit.com, and
Oh,
I played
really?
some of my favorite yeah, I played some of my favorite kind of album cuts. And you know, it's brilliant. Like there's a song that he did called And I Never Cared for You. And I first saw that on YouTube when I was Googling my dad and Willie Nelson, and this one came up, but my dad wasn't in it. But it's Willie before he had the the braids, you know,
Ponytails,
so
yeah.
it's clean cut Willie. And he's playing this masterpiece of poetry that he wrote. You know, the sun is filled with ice and gives no warmth at all. The sky was never blue. The stars are raindrops searching for a place to fall, and I never cared for you. And
Yeah.
then the whole verse is about how this woman has been conditioned to not believe anything that a man says. So he's like, so I prepared these verses. Um, Pay heed and disbelieve. You know, it's just amazing. Like it's such smart songwriting, and
Oh,
and you know,
yeah.
it's Willie Nelson, and everyone thinks, oh, weed and on the road again, but he is
They
a
don't they, they don't
legend.
take into account that these guys idolized Bob Wills as well, and
Yeah.
and that there was jazz involved, and it was somewhat sophisticated. And like you just said, these stanzas, and I definitely recognize the long stanzas in your music, you know, which made me think of Roger, like, you know, 108 miles ain't no difference. It sure don't make no difference. I don't think she loves me anymore. It's like that's just the longest thing. Uh, have you come in contact with Jim Lauderdale though?
Very briefly, we've emailed back and forth a couple times saying we want to get together and write, but it just hasn't happened yet. And
You
then
don't,
2020 hit, so
right?
I'm not
You
I'm
don't
not
need
about to
to,
go in danger. I'm not about to go like put anyone's life in danger by meeting up with them, but
unless it's a good
I
record.
I hope I get to, yeah, I hope I get to write with him someday.
That's good. What was the decision to, and look, I could talk to you forever about this. I wanted to ask you, since you mentioned Willie and you're a musician and a guitar player, what makes him so iconoclastic in the way he plays? Because no one does. It's like a phrase here and there, like these little double stops between verses, and like, how would you explain that?
You know what? So my dad was, you know, one of the greatest guitar players of all time. He could do a crazy burning up solo anytime. And Willie, people don't, the same thing. People think, oh, Glen Campbell, Rhinestone Cowboy. They don't think Glen Campbell guitar player unless they really are fans.
Right.
And it's the same with Willie. He's a musician. Like, people think people think of him as kind of older and iconic, and he sings, he's got a character voice. But when he does a solo, it's very deliberate, and what I love about it is that it's very simple. I love that you don't have to be this flashy technical player to create an iconic solo and a good solo, like his solos are very simple, but they're gorgeous, and he can play,
Who was your dad in touch with when you were a kid, like your earliest memories in terms of guitar players or musicians that might have impacted you in any kind of way, other than your dad? I mean, that's a great thing.
Well, yeah, my dad, and then he loved Jerry Reed, so grew up listening to that Southern Nights. My dad used the Jerry Reed lick, da, 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 in Southern Nights. And yeah, he was always telling Roger Miller jokes. And I was just a little kid, and so everything just kind of flew over my head.
Right.
And now that I'm an adult and I'm fans of these people, I'm looking back and going, oh wow, what influences? Like, Willie Nelson called the house when I was in high school, and I didn't listen to Willie Nelson at all back then. But I knew who he was, and I knew that it was a big deal that he was calling the house, and he was just calling to say hey to my dad and see how he was doing. And my dad was golfing, and so I took a message, and I just remember going, wow, isn't that something?
A little kid saying, isn't that something?
Is Glenn there? Who's calling? Well, this is Willie Nelson. I just went, my jaw dropped,
That's amazing. Yeah, I was born in 1970, so my first awareness of your dad was around the bicentennial when Rhinestone Cowboy came out. And I just remember that's all I knew. And then Southern Nights, and I had no idea that was an Alan Toussaint song. Until later, but I think that any guy who was in a rock band in the late 90s, everyone was talking about Pet Sounds because it was like this I guess it was re-released, and it was very cool to like the Beach Boys. And then I'd seen that your father was a Beach Boy in place of Brian when they went on tour. He loved the band too, didn't he?
Oh, he loved the Beach Boys. And I remember growing up, so he had a theater in Branson, Missouri, the Glen Campbell Good Time Theater. I don't remember what years it was, but I was like 6, 7, and 8 years old. It was 3 years. And he did a Beach Boys medley in his shows. And I just remember, I didn't really know much about the Beach Boys, but I just loved that medley. And I was backstage playing with my stamp collection. Yes, I had a stamp collection. And I would hear the Beach Boys start playing, and I'd run out to the back of the theater and stand with the sound guy and watch it, because I loved it so much. So yeah, he was always a huge fan of the Beach Boys. And I remember him telling me later, when I asked him about his experiences with the Beach Boys, he said, yeah, that's the first time a crowd of women tried to rip my clothes off. He said that was a trip, that was really crazy.
It's we should all experience that once in our life.
Should we?
All of us, including you.
Okay.
What I'm joking. I was what floored me so much about the film, about your dad, was that you were put into I wouldn't call it an impossible role, but you came into that role of really sticking by him. And when I was listening to the song Remembering, it really was so beautiful because it's nurturing, yet also you're recalling everything in your life from the time you were 4 and running into his room because there's a storm. When did you write that song? And then tell me how the experience of that last world tour, and amidst your dad's condition worsening to the very end, and then what kind of artist is Ashley coming out of that? Because it obviously was such a life-changing event for you.
It absolutely was a life-changing event, and it's one of the best times of my life. I feel so lucky that I and blessed that I was able to spend that time with my dad. You know, Alzheimer's is a very, very horrible thing, but also, if you're looking at the silver lining, it tells you you have a very limited amount of time to spend with this person that you love, and
Mhm.
you know that now. So I was 22, 23 years old when we found out he had Alzheimer's. And so that's about the time when I was supposed to be going out on my own, graduating from college, getting my own apartment, and doing whatever the frick 20 somethings do,
Yeah.
you know, discovering themselves. And instead, I went on tour with my dad, and then it turned into this thing of his goodbye tour. And I just remember like switching a dial in my head saying, your goal is to spend as much time appreciating and loving your dad as you can. And that's kind of the foundation of my motivations for everything back then, you know, like appreciate this and cherish this and experience this, and also to help him, you know. Um I don't want to sound all noble and blah blah blah, but like I just remember like when I was on stage with him, like I was just so focused on him. Like it wasn't, maybe that's what made me less nervous because I was such a green musician back then, you know. So I had him to focus on, and I was just like, all right, it's not about me looking cool and showing off. It's about me being his bumper rails, and
Yeah.
if he needs anything, I'm there. I had a wireless mic pack on so I could go out and help him, like even from little things like the guitar tech would bring him out his guitar, and it'd have the capo on the right fret for the next song,
Right.
and he would absent-mindedly be talking about the next song and take it off and put it on the head of the guitar, and he would start playing the song as if the capo were there, and it would sound awful. And I remember one time I saw him take the capo off. I was like, "Ah, shit." And I snuck up behind him as he was talking about, you know, about to go into the next song, and I just took the capo and put it back on the fret, and he didn't even notice, and he
Wow.
started playing the song correctly in the right key, and I was just like, mission accomplished.
What song was it?
Oh gosh, I don't remember.
Don't worry about it. So when did you write Remembering?
I were remembering shortly after the tour ended. So our last gig was in Napa in November of 2012. I think it was November 30th.
Mhm.
And it was definitely time to end. You know, he was having more bad shows than good, even though a couple days before he had an impeccable show, you know, but we were just seeing that it was starting to be a little taxing on him. So we said, let's call it quits. And so shortly after then, I was still living in Malibu with my mom and dad, helping take care of him. And I started turning my eyes to Nashville, and I got a publishing deal with Warner Chappell to write
Okay.
songs. And I moved to Nashville and I started writing with people, and I met this guy named Kai Welch, who he actually produced my latest album.
Oh,
We're still very good friends. Yeah, so I met him at a bluegrass jam at the Five Spot, which actually, sadly, the bluegrass jam ended like 2 weeks after I got to Nashville, but I got to go to a
uh,
couple of them, and that's where I met most of my best friends in music in Nashville. And so Kai was there, and I knew of Kai because he worked with Abigail Washburn, who's married to Bela Fleck.
oh yeah.
And I had actually seen Kai play with Abigail a couple years before in California at
Mhm.
McCabe's guitar shop. They did an acoustic show there, and I was a fan of Abigail, and Kai produced um, her album then, so they were touring that. And I just remember thinking he was really cool, and a talented musician. And so I met him at the Five Spot at the Bluegrass Jam, and we we made a date to write. And
Mhm.
I went to his house that day in his little studio upstairs, and I said, "I have this song that I started," because I actually started remembering before I moved to Nashville. I was in Malibu, and I was hanging out with my dad, and he was wandering around the kitchen, and I was sitting by the fireplace, and I picked up his vintage 1950s Epiphone hollow body, um, and I started playing that progression that's at the beginning of remembering, and I was just thinking about my dad, and I wrote the first couple lines, the 4 years old, about the thunderstorm, and that's all. And then I just recorded it on my phone and forgot about it. And then when I got to Kai's, I said, I've got this song about my dad that I want to finish. And it just like something clicked, and he zeroed in on it, and we wrote the song in about an hour.
It's just so
And I
beautiful.
feel like I blacked out for it. We were so truthful. And I remember saying after we finished it and made a little work tape, like, wow, that was really special. I mean, they'll never play it on the radio, but and then I sent it to James Keach, the director of the documentary, and I said, "Hey, I wrote this song," and he said, "We're using it in the documentary. This is amazing." And I was just like, "Wow, okay, all right, cool." So it was one of those things. I think some of the best songs, the most meaningful songs, are songs that you write without any agenda. You just write them because that's what you need to write, and that's kind of how Remembering came about.
Have you seen people that do try to write for market, and you see them losing their minds because that's you have the right idea, because whether you care or not, it's going to get radio play. It still has. I mean, I couldn't imagine not wanting to play any of these songs on the radio. But then again, is radio still a big deal in the world when we have
Well, I
Spotify?
think radio in the United States, especially country radio, like contemporary country radio, is totally topsy-turvy. It's corporate controlled, and it's political, and it's shit. It really it really is. I mean, ask anyone with good musical taste if they want to listen to mainstream country radio right now, and they'll say no fucking way. But they're the ones who write for it.
I know.
They're the ones getting awards at ASCAP for Song of the Year for writing "Girl, You Make My Speakers Go Boom Boom." Like, and I know those guys, and they're nice guys, and good for them. But like, don't tell me that's a good song.
Wow. I don't think
But then again, good is relative.
Yeah,
Not
no,
hating on
I
anyone, good
agree.
is relative. Silly songs have merit too, but that's a silly song.
Well, I think I heard Wynton Marsalis once say, he was talking about rock music and then jazz. He was like, you can have the steak, and then there's the McDonald's. Both are good, but it's just the steak's always going to be better,
Yeah.
Or it's,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I love, every time that opening piano riff on Louie Louie, comes on, I'm like, this song doesn't say anything, but it's the coolest rock and roll record ever made.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, but you seem to have the right idea. It's a freeing one, though. Freeing thing to not want to write for market. It seems like you're in such a nice little place right now in life, mentally or emotionally or creatively.
Mentally and emotionally. Yeah, I feel like I'm in a good place. It's really hard because when you do make music that you don't care if it goes on the radio, your bread and butter is touring because people like that music and they want to see you play.
Yeah.
But this year we haven't been able to do that. So it's difficult when you can't live on the radio or, online. A lot of good music lives in real life where people go and see your concert.
Sure.
And you connect with your fans and they listen to your album and then they come to your next concert. But we've experienced quite a year where we have to figure out what else is there for us to do and to enjoy and to feel fulfilled while doing. So gosh, yeah, I've taught myself how to record this year. I'm teaching myself. I would not say I'm good at it yet, but I'm experimenting with learning Logic and being able to express myself without the help of an engineer and a producer, even though I'll definitely, I feel like I want to work with Kai again for my next record if he'll have me.
I think he should.
But
because he did an amazing job. I mean, I couldn't imagine, while you might not be able to articulate the technical side, I mean, you were able to say, look, I want more reverb on my vocals here. I've got another sound in my head. It seems like you guys were very on the same page.
Yeah, Kai and I were very simpatico when we made the record. And I think it's important for an artist to have a producer so that the artist can just worry about being the artist. And it's kind of a co-producing thing in a way, because you work so closely together, and Kai is so good about listening and interpreting what you want. And so that's, you know,
Yeah.
that takes a lot of pressure off, knowing that he understands and he's going to get it right.
How's your family doing back home?
They're good. I feel so bad for my brother Cal, not because oh, poor him, but like, I mean, he's a he started playing in Beck's band in
Oh,
2019. He did a Yeah, Beck's one of my favorite artists of
yeah,
all
he's
time,
amazing.
and Cal joined Beck's band at the beginning of 2019, and did the whole night running tour with Beck and Cage the Elephant. And Beck came out with his fabulous Hyperspace album in November of 2019, and they were
Yeah.
supposed to do this world tour, in 2020, and then it all got canceled. So, I mean, what a bummer.
It's such a bummer. Actually, but you just reminded me of my favorite song on the Odelay record. That song, I think it's called Sissy Neck, and it's got a steel guitar, but it's like this strange, like hip hop and then country tune. Um, so when's the next record coming out?
Oh my gosh. I don't
Have
know.
you
I'm
written
writing
it?
for it this year. I've got a couple songs that I know I want to put on it, but I'm writing for it this year. So I would imagine, honestly, because of COVID and everything, and we still haven't gotten to properly promote Something Lovely.
Mhm.
So I'd imagine when we do get the go ahead to be able to do small shows, I want to promote the heck out of Something Lovely and give it the attention it deserves.
Yeah,
In the meantime, be writing. So I don't know. I can't imagine starting recording the next record until 2022.
that's funny. Hey, you want to come over and say hi really quick? My daughter listened to your record. Hang on one sec. Come here, just for a second. This is Sadie. She listened to your stuff earlier, and she's like, I
Hi.
like this song. What song is this? And I said, oh, I'm going to interview her. I said, get out of the room.
Well,
That's
thanks for liking it.
no.
I like your stuffed animal.
um, so I think you're super cool. I can't say enough good things about your album, and hearing you even mention Roger Miller. I know that you're connected and everything, but it makes me appreciate that song even more than I had in the beginning. I'll help in any kind of way promote this album because I haven't heard anything like it in a long time that I like.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much.
you're so welcome. And I'm your new biggest fan because you are as nice as I thought you would be. But I want you to keep practicing, though. You got to keep practicing. No
I
Netflix.
agree. Yeah.
Like learn, one of the Chopin nocturnes on an instrument you've never played before.
Oh, I do. I learned. I do know Bach's cello suite on the banjo.
Oh, you do? That's
Yeah.
it's funny. What so you're in the Ireland area, Belfast, UK for
Northern Ireland. Yeah.
Northern Ireland. Have you been able to kind of go into Belfast or take walks or play golf or anything like that?
Everything is totally locked down here.
Wow.
So it sucks. But luckily, I've been to Ireland and Northern Ireland several times, and so I know what it's normally like, and that makes me sad because I miss it. I love pubs
Mm.
and Guinness. I just had a Guinness earlier. I've got a nice Guinness
Oh, nice.
pint glass here, but it's not the same. I love going and sitting in a pub and chatting with people and playing. Like, my favorite thing to do in Ireland is find a pub with live music, and if there's an Irish band, and get to know the guys and maybe be like, hey, if I bring my banjo tomorrow night, can I jump in with you and hang out? And or sometimes they have a banjo player there, and so I'll just start chatting with them, and they'll be like, why don't you play a couple songs? And like, that's just some of the best times I've ever had. That I played in Derry, Northern Ireland in 2019. I did an 11-day tour all over Ireland, and I started hanging out with this band in Derry, and we had a really fun time, and they were like, it's Glen Campbell's daughter, and so I played Gentle on My Mind on the long neck banjo. It was so much fun, and just everyone's so nice. Like, I miss I can't wait till we get back to a point where we can really connect with people in a personal and in-person, face-to-face way. Because if anything that 2020 has taught us, it's that is so important. We can Zoom all we want till we're blue in the face, but it's not the same as hanging out in person.
No,
So we'll have to have a real hang
we'll
someday.
absolutely do
Me,
that.
you, and Joe. We'll go out for a beer in Chicago
Or in Belfast. You know,
or
I would,
Belfast. Yeah,
I
come
would,
on.
I would love to come there. I once heard a great, it's probably a pretty hackneyed joke, but um, a friend of mine his father was a Jewish guy from Belfast, and I guess sometime during the Troubles, he had been stopped, and someone said, "Are you Protestant? Or are you Catholic?" And he said, "I'm Jewish." He says, "Well, are you a Jewish Protestant or a Jewish Catholic?" Which I always like that joke.
That's funny.
Ashley, thank you so much. I'm thrilled, and I'm going to go back to listening to your record, and I wish you all the best, and I look forward to hearing anything else in the future.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It was so delightful talking to you.
Thank you, and have another Guinness on me.
I shall. Thank you.
All
I'm
right.
finishing my G&T, and we'll see about that.
God bless you. Take care, love.
Bye.
Bye-bye.